Closed captioning for Justice and Law Weekly is provided in part by the Clifford Law Offices in support of quality public television for the Chicago area.
Welcome to the Chicago Bar Association's Justice and Law Weekly. I'm Bob Clifford, President of the Chicago Bar Association. I'm pleased to introduce today Illinois State Representative Lou Lang as our guest. Representative Lang was elected to the Illinois House of Representatives in 1988. Representative Lang became the House Democratic Floor Leader in 1993, and today he serves as the Deputy Majority Leader since 1997. During his service in the Illinois House, Representative Lang has fought for seniors, for women, for working families, and for education, and for victims of mental health disease. Representative Lang is considered the expert in the Illinois General Assembly on the important issue of mental health, as well as the important issue of gaming. He has also passed significant legislation in both of those areas. Representative Lou Lang, thanks for being here today.
Bob, it's a pleasure.
You're a great friend, and we're very proud that you were able to take the time to talk to us about some of the hottest things that are going on in our community right now.
Happy to be here anytime.
You know, I mentioned mental health and gaming. I'd like to talk to you about mental health. I don't think people appreciate that, frankly, that there's someone like you in our General Assembly that really has gone to bat for folks who are suffering from mental health disease. Tell us about your work.
Well, I appreciate that. When about 20 years ago, in the early 90s, it occurred to me that people with mental illness are really an orphan in state government. No one really paying attention. And as you know, as recently as then, there was a big stigma. People didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to bury it. And we provided very little in the way of state services, state support to people with mental illness. And over the years, I've had many hearings, worked on it, passed many pieces of legislation. The most important probably being this year that the governor just signed is a bill that would allow for mental health parity. And in essence, it says if your insurance policy covers mental health, it has to cover it exactly the same way it covers physical health. It can't cover it to a small measure if your policy covers a greater amount for physical health. The advocates for mental health, the nursing homes, the nurses, the doctors, everyone in the pipeline thinks this is a very important step forward to make sure that people get the coverage they need and the treatment they need.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. That's good stuff. You know, we always hear about the failures of legislation. We don't necessarily hear about the successes, and that's certainly one of them.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about gaming.
Sure.
You are the chief expert in my mind on gaming in Illinois. You've served in that capacity for a long time. You oversaw the growth and development of riverboat gaming, and now the new bill that is, I believe, still on the governor's desk, and we read about it every day. You know, how come he hasn't signed it?
I believe that the governor still has some misgivings about the fact that it's gaming or gambling. But the truth is, gaming is a business like any other in Illinois. It's an industry, and it's a legal industry in the state of Illinois. We're not trying to start from no gaming and create a gaming industry. We already have a viable, well-run industry that provides economic development and many jobs. And today, we take a look at this bill not because it's gaming, but because it provides hundreds of jobs, thousands of jobs, as many as 100,000 jobs in the state of Illinois, saves the horse racing industry, creates all sorts of economic development, and stems the tide of people leaving the city of Chicago and the county of Cook every day to drive to other states to gamble. Today, thousands of people a day literally drive up to Dan Ryan and out into Indiana to spend their money doing something that is legal in Illinois, but not convenient for them in Illinois.
Right.
And at its core, all this bill is trying to do is provide jobs and economic development in the state. If this bill were about Chevys or about widgets, and the only place to buy a Chevy or a widget was in the state of Indiana, the governor would call a special session of the General Assembly and say, we're going to find out why these things aren't being sold in Illinois. There's no difference here with gaming, none at all.
Right. You know, from the job creation perspective, I know we have the newest casino in Des Plaines. I really haven't been paying attention to the data, but I'm sure it's out there about what's taking place in terms of revenue enhancement, the taxes and the jobs. And have you been watching that closely? And could you tell us what's going on?
Sure, I watched it very closely.
Right.
And Des Plaines in its first month cleared $38 million. To put that in perspective, because of that $38 million, Illinois was probably $20 or $30 million ahead of its pace from a year ago in the same month. Some of our casinos were down a little.
Right.
Part of that is because of Des Plaines, I'll give you that,
Right.
but part of that is also because of the recession that's still going on and people out of work. The numbers nationally for gaming are down, but here in Illinois, counting Des Plaines, our numbers are up. That puts a lot of people to work. It puts a lot of dollars on the table for the state of Illinois. The mayor of the city of Des Plaines is very happy because he's bringing in a lot of money for his city.
Yeah. And the new mayor for Chicago is behind in support of a casino for Chicago. Is that right?
Mayor Emanuel understands what I understand, which is gaming is jobs. Gaming is economic development. And it's not just the jobs at the gaming site. It's law enforcement jobs, it's construction jobs, it's restaurants and hotels that will be built, and shopping centers that will be built, and service industries like flower shops and coffee shops that will service the casino. So there's a huge ripple effect of jobs and economic development when you build a casino in a metropolitan area like the city of Chicago.
You know, I've been the devil's advocate with you, though. What are the downsides, though? I mean, I've always heard over the years of, you know, the people that'll go to the casinos are the very people who are least able to afford to be there. And I mean, there has to be some downside to this other than just, you know, religious objection or moral objection.
Studies will show that people who go to casinos are going to go to casinos if they have to drive 5 minutes or if they have to drive 2 hours. If they want to gamble, they're going to gamble. Today we have 10 casinos in the state of Illinois that are legal. We have many racetracks. We have the lottery. We have pull tabs. In short, we have more legal ways to gamble even without this bill in the state of Illinois than in the state of Nevada. And people that want to gamble will. The argument that says we're somehow going to create a new class of gamblers who are going to lose their homes, et cetera, I think is faulty logic. There are people who gamble who shouldn't, no question about it. But this bill goes to great lengths to try to increase the number of people who can afford to gamble to go and decrease the number who can't. And we've done that by lowering the tax, as other states have done, on table games like craps and blackjack and roulette, because those games are labor intensive. They require people. Anyone who's ever gone to play craps knows that there's several people around the table who work for the casino who are all paid. The people who should not be in a casino are the people who put dollar after dollar after dollar of their last paycheck into a slot machine.
Right.
And so as we lowered the taxes on table games, we're going to entice the casinos to have more and more table games, hire more and more people, and skew the numbers more in favor of table games, thus keeping the people that shouldn't be in the casinos out of the casinos.
You know, I've not paid much attention to this of late because I've been so focused on what's going on in Chicago on this front. But Chicago, we have this like $600 million plus 635, 650 deficit in the budget. How bad is it for the state, and what will this bill do to help right that economic ship?
We have a balanced budget today, but it's balanced by making huge cuts in places we didn't want to make them. This bill has the potential of creating $1 billion a year additional money for the state of Illinois, and the bill will create $1.4 to $1.6 billion up front for licensing fees. And under the bill, all of the upfront money will go to pay old bills. The state has $8 or $9 billion it owes folks. About $4.2 billion of that is real money owed to real businesses in Illinois, like pharmacies and doctors and clinics and other people that service the citizens of the state of Illinois. We want to get some of those bills paid down, and this bill will get almost half of those bills paid up front as soon as we get the bill signed.
Right. You've been in politics now as an elected official some 23 years or so. You got a 25th anniversary coming up. I asked a guest at another interview about how it is that we keep demonizing and why it is we keep demonizing people that enter public service. How do you feel about that? And upon reflection of this, do you have any regrets about going into politics and the impact it's had on you individually and on your family life and those things?
I'm sure if my wife were here to answer the question,
Right.
she'd have a different answer.
Right.
My answer is I don't regret a minute of my public life. I could have retired long ago and just go and practice law.
Right.
But I haven't done that because I still love what I do. In fact, I enjoy it more now than I ever have because I have more of an impact on the process now.
Well, you're in leadership.
My leadership
Right.
and my experience and my institutional knowledge of how the government works and how the Illinois House works has helped my constituents, and I believe I've accomplished some things for the citizens of Illinois. But the reason I think that regular, ordinary people think poorly about people in public life is that every once in a while they read on the front page of the newspaper about people in public life doing something they shouldn't do.
Right.
The truth is, probably a smaller percentage of people in politics are crooks, but you don't read about the escapades of a plumber or a bartender or a taxi driver on the front pages of the newspaper. But when an elected official does something they ought not do, it's on the front page, and people begin to think that everyone in my business is some sort of crook. It simply is not true. We have people in my business who are good at what they do,
Right.
and people who are bad at what they do. But the assumption that everybody in public life is some sort of crook is really wrong, and it's really insulting.
Well, and it's keeping good people out, I think. Folks just don't want to run that gauntlet. Otherwise, good people are saying, hey, why should I do that?
I think that's clearly true, particularly at the highest levels of government, because the scrutiny is even more. And the smallest little problem in your life could convince people they shouldn't vote for you because of that. Or the smallest little problem in your life could bring on some negative piece of mail sent by your opponent to someone's home, twisting and turning some small nothing into making it look like it's a lot bigger than it is.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show that you've had the opportunity to deal with bills that deal with education. One of the initiatives of the Chicago Bar Association is to look very closely at civics education here in our state. You know, we're not doing enough to force our school boards to teach civics. That's a bad thing. Why aren't you doing something about that?
I think we should do something about that. As you know, many years ago, it was a required class in public school, and when I went to school, it already wasn't required. We had to take the Constitution test, as kids do now, but I think that was more crammed into you so you could pass it. There are not enough people in this world that know enough about government to pass a simple test about it.
Right.
There are not enough people who really know government well enough to know whether government is doing a good job or a bad job, and all they know is what they read in the newspaper. Part of that is their fault. Part of that is our fault as elected officials because we don't do enough to educate our constituents. But certainly the school system could be a part of that process. And Bob, I'd be happy to work with you on this bill.
Well, thank you. We're going to come up with one.
Okay.
Let me go back to gaming for a moment. First, a disclosure. I once represented a casino, so I have to say this. But now the question or statement. I don't think the gaming board has been very helpful to the public's understanding of this debate. Am I wrong about that?
I have grave concerns about the gaming board's comments about this piece of legislation.
Why?
Because they've misstated the facts.
This is your chance to tell 8 million people the right facts.
The chairman of the gaming board has gone to great lengths to tell people that the Chicago Casino Authority that we set up in the bill has superior powers to the Illinois Gaming Board, and that's bad for gaming. And if it were true, it would be bad for gaming.
Right.
But the bill doesn't say that. The bill says the Illinois Gaming Board, who has done an outstanding job for 20+ years, policing our casinos and making sure there's no scandal and no hint of a problem, not only with the owners but with the people who work there and the vendors, et cetera, That gaming board needs to have all the power it needs to regulate all gaming in the state of Illinois, and the bill does that. And so there has been a twisting and a turning of the facts for reasons I don't fathom. The chairman's also talked about the fact that the bill doesn't give him any money to do his job. Well, it strains the imagination to think that we would pass a bill that would raise about $1 billion for the state of Illinois and not find within that $1 billion all the money the gaming board needs to do its job. Every time in the last 20 years the gaming board has asked for more money, we've given it to them as a General Assembly. The last time we gave it to them, they didn't spend it. So their budget is up 60% over the last handful of years. No budget in the state of Illinois is up that much. Every agency of state government has had to do with less. But I say give the gaming board all the money it needs to police this industry. But to say that the bill doesn't give them the money is just a ridiculous argument, in my opinion.
You know, one of the things that I hear in the street, if you will, about the bill is that it's going to permit every business that has a liquor license the opportunity to have video gaming and stuff going on in the back room of the local bars. That can't be a good thing.
Well, first, this isn't part of this bill. We passed as part of the Capitol bill 2 years ago, which I was also the sponsor of, a piece of legislation that will rebuild Illinois. It was a $31 billion capital program. One of the funding sources for paying back the bonds to build these roads and bridges and schools and libraries, et cetera, is video gaming. And that bill would allow any liquor pouring establishment to buy up to 5 of these. However, each community could opt out if they wished. Some communities have opted out.
The city of the local government, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
The city of Chicago has a different story because the city of Chicago has an anti-gambling ordinance. The city of Chicago remains the only city in Illinois that would actually have to opt in. And Mayor Emanuel hasn't indicated what he wants to do on video gaming. I know he will want to opt in if the governor signs the gaming bill that's sitting on his desk, but I don't know if Mayor Emanuel wants them to opt in on video gaming, and that's still up in the air. This is an industry that will revitalize a lot of mom-and-pop businesses all over Illinois, so we tend to think about local bars and restaurants in the city of Chicago or Cook County and highly populated areas.
Right.
But it's important to understand that this isn't for those. Many of those businesses will take advantage of this,
Right.
but the greater number of people are downstate. Some small bar in Effingham or Cairo or East St. Louis that is simply trying to stay alive and stay afloat, pay their employees, maybe make their businesses bigger. So it's about economic development and jobs and capital development as well.
You know, you mentioned something that I really wanted to bring up because I don't think people here in Chicago readily understand, and that is once you get outside of Chicago and you talk about the riverboats that are from Iowa that are adjacent to our cities, how we're also losing, the state is losing a lot of revenue there, very analogous to the Indiana casinos. Is that right? Is that an issue?
That's totally correct. And so if you live in Rock Island, Illinois, up in the Quad Cities area, a 3-minute drive over the Mississippi to Davenport, Iowa is a riverboat. And in many ways, because of our state regulation, we send a lot of people to Iowa who ought to be here in Illinois. Why shouldn't we find a way to keep Illinois people spending money in Illinois and maybe even entice Iowans to come into our state and spend money? But our laws have not encouraged that. And it's a shame because there have been years where our gaming revenue has gone down, but it's gone down in exactly the same proportion that our surrounding neighbors have had their gaming go up. And so it's because people are leaving Illinois. If you would go to the Davenport, Iowa riverboat or the Gary, Indiana riverboat and never get out of your car and just drive through the parking lot and look at the license plates, you'd see 70–80% of those license plates are from Illinois.
Wow. So here we are, it's the fall is here and the legislature gets back into session in a short period of time. Is this the hot issue for November?
Well, for me, it's the hot issue.
Right.
I've been working on it a long time, but we have many issues. We still have budgetary issues, bills to pay, pension problems. The Commonwealth Edison bill that the governor vetoed will be a hot topic to determine whether we're going to help Commonwealth Edison build what they call a smart grid, which they believe will lessen the probability of power outages in the future. There's a lot to talk about, there always is, but if the governor acts on the gaming bill prior to the end of veto session, which is likely,
Right.
we will be in a position to act, to approve his changes, to override his changes, to pass a different bill. There's all sorts of possibilities.
Sure. And is there any movement afoot to bring all the legislative leaders together with the governor to have like a summit on this gaming bill so that, for those of us who, are out here in the public having to pay the taxes, we can see that our leadership is getting together and they're all sitting at the table with their sleeves rolled up trying to do a job for us. Is something like that going to happen?
There have been meetings, but not with all the leaders. First of all, Speaker Madigan has recused himself on gaming. He's not interested in this bill. I wouldn't say he's not interested. He's got a conflict of interest with a client or two, and he cannot be involved in gaming. I have met as the House negotiator with the governor. Senator Link, the Senate sponsor, President Cullerton have met with the governor. But the problem is that we've had many meetings, but we've had no negotiations yet. The governor has not yet told us what he wishes to do, but eventually he's going to have to do that if we're going to try to take this bill or a cousin of this bill and try to make it the law of the state of Illinois. In the end, there's 100,000 or more jobs at stake, $1 billion or $2 in revenue at stake. The horse racing industry is teetering, and this bill will help keep it alive and bring back a business we've lost to other states in the agribusiness world. This is an important piece of legislation for our economy.
Sure. Switching gears a bit, I think I read that President Obama was visiting a bridge, and he's visiting it because it's between Ohio and Indiana and Kentucky, and I'll have my geography wrong, but we've got some real serious road problems here in Illinois. What is the legislature doing about those things?
We do, and because Illinois is the crossroads of America, virtually every truck going across the country is passing through Illinois, which is one of the reasons the roads are chewed up, but one of the reasons we have to deal with it. So the $31 billion capital bill that I sponsored 2 years ago, which will put 400,000 people to work by the governor's numbers, is going to help fix that. As you know, and as the viewers know, you can hardly drive 5 blocks in Cook County and not see a construction site. That is all because of the bill we passed to put people to work and to rebuild Illinois. So roads and bridges are going to be improved.
Okay, okay. The legislature also deals with funding for legal services. Legal services is suffering. The number of lawyers in the legislature is down. Yet the need for the Bar Association experiences is that there's an ever-expanding need for legal services. We need a champion for legal services funding. What do you think about all that?
Well, I've been a supporter of that for some time, but I must say that some of the ideas that have come forth have been wanting. So oftentimes people will come to the legislature with an idea to provide more legal services through additional court filing fees.
Right.
My view is that that's not a good approach. We have to find a different approach. I think when you have more filing fees, and as you know, Bob, in Cook County we probably have the highest filing fees in the country as it is, and if they have courts on Mars, they're probably higher than they have on Mars as well. We have to find another way to do it, because the higher and higher these fees get, costs get, the more we push litigants with good cases right out of the courthouse.
Right.
So I'm for finding ways to do this, and happy to work with you on it.
Okay. Well, the CBA has a whole bunch of initiatives that we'd like to pursue, and certainly having a lawyer in the legislature of your stature is not only an asset for the community, but we think it's an asset for the profession, and we are very grateful for what you have done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I can't believe our time is almost up already. That's what they are giving me the signal. But let me ask you one more important budgetary thing, and that is that is there ever going to be a time when there will be, it's a totally different subject than what we've been talking about, where we will lower property tax rates because the value of our homes has also gone down? I mean, here we are, property taxes are going up, and the value of our homes is, down. That does not make sense to me. What are you guys doing with all our money?
As you know, nothing from the property taxes goes to the state of Illinois.
Right.
Property taxes are all local taxes, whether it be the mosquito abatement district or the city or village in which you live or the township or the schools. 2/3 of everybody's tax bill goes to one school or another, or in some cases 2 or 3 schools. It's a serious problem. I sponsored something years ago called the 7% solution, or what was called the 7% solution, which did put the brakes on some of the extraordinary assessment increases in terms of how much of it could be taxed. But that has expired, and now we have some significant problems. And at a time where people's property values are going down, for their property taxes to be going up is almost insane. Right. And but the budgets of local communities are such that they have to keep doing it. And we have tried to put some brakes on them, but it's very difficult to do.
We need you to put more brakes on them and to lower the income taxes to offset the increase in property taxes.
I will tell you this, that when I poll my constituents, which I do from time to time, they tell me that the tax that really ticks them off is the property tax. Many of them have said to me, just tax my income as much as you want, because whether it's 2% or 3% or 5%, I know what it is, but I don't know what my property taxes are going to be year by year, and I can't budget for that. So it would be helpful if we could do something about it.
Well, next time we have you back, we're going to ask you what you've done.
Very good. Good question.
Thank you, sir. Representative Lou Lang, we really want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. These are incredibly important issues that not only the city of Chicago is facing, but the state of Illinois is facing today. We appreciate the efforts that the Illinois House does make on our behalf, although it could do a little bit more. I'm Bob Clifford. Thank you for watching the Chicago Bar Association Justice and Law Weekly.
Closed captioning for Justice and Law Weekly is provided in part by the Clifford Law Offices in support of quality public television for the Chicago area.